Welcome to my first 5-minute book review. Today we're going to review the book Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And this was a very interesting book to me. I really learned a lot from this book. We're going to go ahead and start the timer. 5 minutes on the clock, starting now. And in the book Rich Dad, Poor Dad, it was about a boy who had a father who made really good money, but he didn't know business and he didn't know finances. So he made great money, but he never really had any money. And the boy had a friend whose father was a businessman and understood money and the principles of getting money and keeping money. So the boy had a choice at the age of 9 who to listen to. Either his poor dad, who actually had money but just didn't know how to keep it, or his friend's dad, which he called Rich Dad. He had to choose between the two of who he would listen to about life, about who to take financial advice from in life. And he chose the Rich Dad. So as the book goes, the Rich Dad takes him on a set of principles to try to teach him how to become financially stable and teach him the rules of the game, basically. And the first thing he taught him was that the rich don't work for money. See, the poor and middle class go out and work for their money, but the rich don't. The rich make money work for them. So that was the first principle he taught him. And that, when I first heard that, that blew my mind. I'm thinking like, wow, what does he mean by that? Like, and as the book goes on, he explains it, and it's just like, wow. And the second principle is learning financial literacy. Financial literacy is, I am now convinced that financial literacy is almost the only way that you can obtain wealth, keep the wealth. It is the only way, is if you are financial literate. Think about lottery winners. They win the lotto, they get all this money, and what happens? They lose all the money, and then they usually end up in worse debt than they were before they got the money. And what happened was they didn't understand the principles, the financial principles of how to keep the money, because they were never taught that. I know when I was growing up, I was not taught about financial literacy or anything like that. And so now that is something, as me, a single father, I'm going to make sure I teach my 4 kids is you have to be financial literate. I have to teach them the difference between assets and liabilities, the difference between with corporations, how you can start a corporation, how you can start a trust, understanding its taxes, understanding your taxes, understanding compound interest, index funds. I have to teach my kids these things. And I told my brother about a year ago, before I started on this journey, I said, you know, I have to learn how money works before I get money, because that's the only way I'm going to be able to keep the money. So the third principle that he went over was mind your own business. And what that means is, don't worry about what everybody else is doing. See, worry about what you're doing and focus on gathering assets that will make money for you. That's what the point of that is. And not just a job that will give you a paycheck. Because what happens is we get these jobs, they give us these paychecks, and then, you know, you start thinking, you have the job, you're like, yeah, I can live off this. And then you get a raise, and then you're like, well, now I need more money. So it's like the more we get, the more we spend. And that's the opposite of what the rich do. See, what they do is they get money, and then they take that money to buy assets that will make them more money. So they always have money working for them. And so that was an important principle. And the thing that blew my mind was when he pointed out that McDonald's owns the most prime real estate in the world. I never would have thought that, but it makes so much sense. McDonald's buys prime intersections, corners where they put their stores, and then when they sell it to the franchise, they also sell them the land too. So McDonald's is brilliant, and they own some of those prime real estate around the world. That is just amazing to me. And the fourth thing that it talks about is taxes. See, in 1913, the poor and the middle class voted for taxes to be levied, and then with the rich against the rich. And then what the rich did was turn that around later and say, you know what, we have all this power, this money, and this influence. We're gonna turn it around to where the poor and middle class pay the taxes. And so it's not so much what you make, it's what you can keep. And that is very, very important. Somebody might make $200,000 a year, but if you're only keeping 100, 120, doesn't matter as much. You know, that's a big difference. And we are almost out of time. We actually are out of time. But I'm going to give you guys another point. What rich people do is they start corporations and trusts, and they put all their property and stuff in trust. We live in a sue-happy society, so when they want to protect their wealth, so they put it in these trusts that basically you can't litigate against, because they control everything but own nothing in their actual name. And that is like amazing. Corporations are taxed on what they don't spend. So it is like the total opposite of how, previous to getting this book, that I would have thought about money and understanding the difference. It makes so much sense why people who are not financially educated, such as myself, why it's important that we learn these things, because it will be the difference between whether we stay broke or we continue to get more money. That will be the difference. And I'm going to end with this. I just think at this point, you need to get the book, read the book, go over the principles. He pretty much lays it out beautifully, and so anybody can understand it. And I think, especially with tax season being up on us, it is a good time for people to, you know, take a step back and look at how they could use their money instead of being consumers. You know, how can you apply your money to an asset that might make you some money? Like, I think we need to start thinking about it and looking at it like that, and focusing more on becoming more financial literate. And actually, this has been a 7.5 minute review. I'm going to end now and say, like I said, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, get the book. And next week, we're going to do another book that I read that I thought was really amazing. And it is called Are You the One for Me by Barbara D. Angeles. And the reason why I'm going to review this book next week is because Valentine's Day is coming up, and I think it's something we need to think about. You know, when we're dating people, we need to ask ourselves certain questions to see if this is a good fit for me, if this is the right person for me. So I think there's nothing wrong with, you know, asking yourself questions and being aware of these things. Well, my name is Jalal Wilson. If you don't know me, you will. This is the Single Father Project, and I will have another episode of the show coming again soon. But I will be doing a weekly book review. I read or listen to one book every week. So you will hear from me every week on Wednesdays or Tuesdays about this time. I'll try to get it posted to YouTube right away after I do it. I do it on Facebook Live first under Jalal Wilson if you want to find me on Facebook. And I also will do it here. I thank you guys for your time. You guys have a great night and be blessed. Until next time. This is the Single Father Project. I'm out.